everybody. I wanted to just sit down and talk to you about something that personally I've kind of struggled with over the years. And the thing that I'm going to be talking about today is self-confidence and learning more about myself and learning to appreciate who I was, realizing my self-worth. I kind of wanted to talk more about my journey with self-confidence because I realized that my definition of self-confidence, not the best. My definition of self-confidence was really different back then to what it is now, and I wanted to just talk about how I got there and the influences that I had on that definition of self-confidence. And of course, I am no expert in any of this. I'm not a professional. I'm not a therapist in any way, shape, or form, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but I also have kind of gone through a lot and I've learned a few things along the way. So I hope that you guys listen. I'm here more as a resource. So without further ado, I'll get started. I think the first thing that I want to talk about is the context behind your self-confidence. I think it's always helpful to know or have an idea kind of what makes you confident. Like, is that receiving compliments from others, or is that completing a task that you worked so hard to complete over the past few weeks or something like that? I think that confidence can be dependent on a ton of different factors for different people. It might be more externally based, or it might be something that's more intrinsic, something that you kind of define yourself. And before I kind of go any further talking about my journey, for me, it was much more of something that was defined by external factors, driven by other people's perceptions of me, by compliments and things that people were telling me here and there. Over time, I realized that it was definitely something that was not innate. So that's a little bit of a background I wanted to give for you, and now I'll kind of go into the influences I had on my self-confidence. First thing that I learned to let go of was other people's perceptions of me. Yeah, I used to take this very seriously. I think in my school years, definitely like mostly in middle school and high school, I was very concerned about what other people thought of me. I was really disturbed and scared of the fact that people wouldn't like me, and I really just took that so seriously. I don't know what I was. I don't know.
So I think what I was trying to say all along that I never got to, because I love to ramble and I forget what I'm talking about, is that I think from a young age, especially in middle school and high school, basically our grade school years, we're conditioned to really rely on what other people think of us and try to not stand out that much. Obviously, like, that's a very common part of growing up, is learning to accept yourself, and that often comes later. And so for me, that definitely came later. I was brought up in this mindset that I had to care so much what other people think, but obviously not the case. So just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, on to the scheduled content.
I don't know who the heck I was trying to please. I really clung on to the friends that I had at the time, even though some of them were very toxic, and I just kind of relied on what people thought of me. Also, this went into high school as well, where people would form opinions on me based on their first impressions of me, saying that I seemed kind of dumb, I seemed kind of ditzy, I wasn't thinking about anything serious. And that did really change the way that I saw myself, and I made an effort to conceal who I was upon meeting people for the first time, basically like muting my personality so that they don't really think that way about me. I was really concerned about that, and that kind of just trailed into college. In my freshman year, I was really concerned about how other people perceived me, and people would often joke about things, and I'd really take it personally. I would take it as a bash to my character, a bash to my intelligence, and now I don't think I would be doing the same thing. That's the interesting part of it. And I think also part of it ties into social media, where I was really concerned about getting likes on my profile picture. I needed at least 100 likes in order for that to be considered successful. Yeah, just weird things like that. And I eventually kind of learned to let go of that over time. And I think that this is obviously a process. If you feel the same way as me, this kind of does take a while. I think you kind of just have to go through life and only then you'll realize that really none of that stuff actually matters. So I would definitely kind of just take that in stride. I eventually learned that really only you can kind of control how that affects you. Only you can decide how much weight you want that to have in your life. And for me, I realized as long as I love myself, no one's opinions of me can crush me down or make me feel unworthy. So the next topic that I want to talk about is learning to let go of this idea of like defining qualities. And so this is kind of similar to the last point that I want to make. People that I know who were really nice to me in high school, who were my friends, they kind of told me that I was a certain way. Like, for example, I'm super funny, I'm super energetic, and my friend group also was kind of like me in high school. We were also very fun, energetic, kind of eclectic. And I basically held on to those values as I went into college as well. There's so much diversity, so many unique people, so many fun personalities. That's one of the best parts about the school that I went to, is all of these different types of people. However, at the time, I didn't quite appreciate it. It's not like I necessarily thought directly, but I just felt very lost in the mix, because I clung on to this idea that I was very eclectic, I was very fun, and I felt very much washed out, very like blah, very basic, if you will. Then I just approached every situation I was in a very insecure manner. I'd constantly get offended by different situations, even though I think a lot of the people wouldn't know that I was even offended. But I think part of it is that I just wasn't confident in myself, obviously. And so I had to kind of let go of this idea I had of myself in my head, because basically that idea of myself was formulated based on other people's opinions of me. That same idea that I mentioned before. Once I let that go, I feel like I don't need to fit a particular niche. I don't need to fit into a certain box. And I think that also part of this categorization comes from media and entertainment. I think a lot of the time, especially in high school-esque movies, they basically bucket people into certain groups. And that's like something that's really characteristic of those types of movies, is that people kind of get placed into different niches. Like, for example, the nerds, the popular kids, the hipsters, the artsy kids, the jocks. That probably was something that was internally present within me, and so for that reason I kind of just felt like I also needed to bucket myself based on the characteristics that used to define me. I think now I don't really put myself in a box. I just really go with the flow. I live my life and I feel great about it. Yes. Oh. So the next point I want to bring up is stepping outside my comfort zones, because I think a lot of issues with confidence that I faced was in regard to my skill. Basically, I have a history of being able to do really hard things and never the easy things. So I had a lot of insecurities with my skills, the way I interacted with people. Even though I consider myself pretty extroverted, I feel like I'm a little awkward in social situations. And yeah, my entire freshman year, that was something I kind of struggled with. I felt very inadequate in certain areas, even though I'm not naturally that person. So then sophomore year hits and I have the opportunity to study abroad for a semester, and I decided to take it. I studied abroad in Florence, Italy, and I decided to do this because I thought it would be such an enriching opportunity. I actually went to Florence once before, right before I went to college. It was such an amazing city, and I thought it would be a really enriching experience because I did not speak a word of Italian, which is scary. It's scary to go to a place and be living there for like a couple of months and not speak the language. So I decided to do that. Honestly, one of the best experiences of my life. Oh, I could talk forever about it. But what I will leave you with is that that experience allowed me to grow, because there were a lot of firsts on that trip. I went on a plane by myself for the first time when I was going to Florence from where I'm from, and I've never done that before. And then I traveled with other people. I was by myself without no parents in this foreign country, and that in itself was a very big step step for me. I got to meet some amazing people along the way who are still my great friends to this day, and I'm so glad to have met them. And yeah, I just grew more confident about my abilities. I managed difficult situations that I feel like would have intimidated me like a year ago, but again, I took that leap and I was able to actually learn Italian, manage situations over there pretty well, and it gave me the confidence to do a lot of things that I do today. I felt like I also had a really good understanding of myself during this period, so I definitely recommend that. Stepping outside of your comfort zone, kind of training yourself to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, and learning to adapt along the way is a really important skill to have. The next thing, and I think this would be my final thing, is cutting out the negative influences in your life. You do not need a friend who is going to weigh you down and make you feel bad about yourself. You don't need friends that push your boundaries every single time. You do not need that at all. I've only recently become this person. I never really stood up for myself. In middle school and high school even, I only developed this skill late high school, but I wasn't even that developed in this skill until now. But yeah, I kind of let people stomp all over me because, again, like I said, I was a people pleaser and it just obviously didn't do well for me. So please do that. And I think that like sometimes it's often hard to see if the person is toxic, if the person is not good for you. But one rule of thumb that I will say is that you need to set boundaries for yourself, and obviously that does come with time and learning what you can tolerate and what you can't. But also, I don't think you should be tolerating bad friends, so definitely define that for yourself. I think that often comes with being more self-aware, so definitely start to think about that. Can you tolerate a friend who is constantly trying to put you down, not rooting for you to be your best self? And I think that two friends should come together as full people instead of one friend constantly clinging on to the other friend. You know, just something to consider. Definitely cut out the negative influences in your life. They do not serve you well. And the last section of this video is where I'm at in terms of my self-confidence. And I will say, I think I'm in a really good place. I wouldn't be making this video if I wasn't, honestly. My self-confidence is fully defined by me. It comes from within because I know my self-worth and I know that I bring so much to the table that no one else can. And I really do love myself. And I think that oftentimes people can look at people who say, oh, I love myself, and think that they're narcissistic. I think we need to normalize the phrase of loving yourself and saying that out loud, because it is not narcissism. It's really just acknowledging your self-worth and learning how much value you bring to the table and how no one can take that away from you. And so that is something I will say to wrap this up. And I hope that this video was helpful for you guys. This is my first video and I'm really excited about this, and I hope to make more videos like this. This is my favorite thing to talk about. So I hope that you guys enjoy, and if you want to see more of me, definitely subscribe to my channel. And yeah, hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!